amụmụ ihe na-adị mana Chukwu eburu ihe dị eme ọbata ọbịa ọbatara ebe nwanyị agaghị amụmụ nwa ọbata ihe a dị mma ịkpọle Chukwu eburu ihe dị eme.
Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Imo State, Senator Hope Uzodimma, please let me use you to recognize all the excellencies here present, not forgetting my colleague, your deputy. Please let me also use you to recognize all the deputies here present representing their governors and the ladies in the House, the Deputy Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives, my own brother, Right Honorable Benjamin Okezie Carlo. Please let me also use you to recognize all honorable members here and our senators here present. Our royal fathers here present, you are well recognized. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, stakeholders, and for those who were not properly recognized, I want to assure you that God recognizes you more. Ndewon. His Excellency, my boss, Dr. Alex Otti, OFR, who is unavoidably absent. I'm here through his approval to give the position of Abia State today. In his own well-written speech, but you'll be hearing my voice. The title of his speech is Encoding Our Collective Aspirations, being a text of an address by His Excellency Dr. Alex Chioma Otti, OFR, the Executive Governor of Abia State, at the Southeast Imo and Abia Zonal hearing review of the 1999 Constitution. Constitutions are not relics of political bureaucracy. They embody the dynamic aspirations of the constituents of the national community in a pluralistic society like Nigeria, with hundreds of ethnic nationalities, religious and cultural groups. The legitimacy of the Constitution is derived from the inputs and contributions of the different entities who share a common heritage and identity. The process may be expensive, tiring, and disappointing at times, but that is the sacrifice that must be made for any genuine effort at nation building, especially in the federation of multiple tribes and tongues like ours. The quest to build a nation that runs on the immutable values of justice, fairness, and the pursuit of human dignity demands bringing as many stakeholders as possible to the table, listening to their ideas of nationalhood and fleshing out the key elements that, when integrated into a body of laws and convention, gives everyone a sense of security and the assurance of being part of the whole. The 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria came into force by Decree 24 of 1999, which was promulgated on the 5th of May 1999 by the ruling military dictatorship at that time. It was, in my estimation, a sincere attempt by the military rulers to establish a legal framework for eventual transition to a civilian administration. The Constitution had been severely criticized for lacking the inputs of a broad section of Nigerians and for the skewed distribution of powers in favor of the center. My position is that the military dictators, in view of the circumstance of their emergence and the national discomfort with continuing military rule, did the best they could to meet the short timeline for the transition. The cloud of anxiety and tensions arising from the unfortunate events of that era could also have hampered any elaborate proposals to engage more broadly in the development of a robust national constitution. Without holding brief for anyone, I would argue that the flaws and drawbacks in the 1999 Constitution are best understood within the context of the social and political realities of the time. In the light of the above, I agree partly with those who put the blame for much of our national problems since the dawn of the Fourth Republic on the doorsteps of the military rulers who decreed the 1999 Constitution into being. They clearly, perhaps for the reasons of constraints, did not take cognizance of certain dynamics of the federal governance structure in the drafting and final adoption of the Constitution that still guides the pattern of our power relationships till date. Obviously, there are too many gaps and ambiguities that are being exploited by different stakeholder groups to advance interests that are not entirely in the scope. Even then, I am also cautious that blaming those who left the scene almost 30 years ago for the problems of today. My view is that we now have sufficient governance experience to determine what is not working and make changes as may be relevant from time to time. I am aware that since 2010, the 1999 Constitution has undergone 5 epochs of alterations in response to demands of cultural changes by Nigerians. Going through the whole 9 yards of constitutional amendment at 5th time over, the 15-year period speaks to our evolving desire to change our national experience by periodically tinkering with the supreme laws of the land. We must congratulate ourselves for not being afraid to test the system and brave the odd to make so much needed changes. Many commentators had criticized the rancorous process of financial commitments and often go with the constitution review process. But again, nation building is never an exercise in commercial transaction where decisions are driven largely by hunger for profits and aversion to risks. If we focus too intensely on the costs in time, human and material resources, traveling around the country and interacting with stakeholders as we are doing today, we instantly lose sight of the profound changes that this process has also bettered. The gains include the restructuring of our electricity value chain, enforcing the rights of young Nigerians aspiring to elective offices and other body of alterations that have that have strengthened our democracy and fortified its institutions in ways that could not have been thought possible in 1999 when the original draft of the Constitution was decreed into being. On account of the gains that have been made through these constitutional review processes over the years and the role in advancing our broad spectrum of development expectation, I welcome the ongoing efforts by the 10th National Assembly to collate the inputs of stakeholders from across the nation with a view to aggregating, streamlining, and fine-tuning them to further enrich the supreme body of laws in Nigeria when assented to by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I am particularly glad that there is a sense of urgency to this in view of the well-informed decision to set a target date for the completion of this process. I would like to particularly appreciate the Deputy President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Baru Jubril, CFR, who also doubles as the Chairman, Senate Committee on Constitution Review, and his counterpart in the Green Chamber, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, my own brother, Right Honorable Benjamin Carlo, CFR, who also chairs the House Committee on Constitution Review, for their commitment and sense of patriotic duty in driving this process. I want to thank them for making the exercise people-driven and for understanding the broad elements of this very assignment. It is gratifying to see that everyone connected to this process at the National Assembly appreciates the weight of the public expectation on their shoulders. This may not be the easiest of legislative duties, but if done right, could provide the institutional ladder for our ascent into the development order. I want to also thank the body of stakeholders from the organized private sector, civil society organizations, youths and women groups, cultural and religious institutions who are here participating in this exercise from different parts of the country for effectively lending their voices to the push for more functional union driven by values that uplift and inspire greatness in nations. Let me also encourage our friends who are refusing to participate to forgo whatever misgivings they have and come on board to lend their voices to this latest attempt at national rebirth through a constitutional review process driven by multiple stakeholder groups. It has to be said that we cannot build a great nation on the altar of cynicism and self-doubt. Yes, it has been argued that we have done this before, and yet some of our fundamental problems remain unresolved. The challenges of electoral maladministration, erosion of trust in the state institutions, poor economic infrastructure, high youth unemployment, and insecurity continue to escalate. So it is understandable when people, especially those who may have invested in this process many years ago, throw their hands up in the air in surrender. As someone who also suffered grave institutional injustice on a number of occasions, I know the pains and frustration that come with the disappointment many of our compatriots feel. I can understand why they may wish to keep their distance, but again, it was never promised by the journey of building a Nigeria that works for all, who for all would be walked in the park. For all won't be just a walk in the park. When we retreat from our patriotic duty and of engaging the system, asking questions and adding our voices to the demands of justice, fairness, and the body of rights that define our freedom and preserve our dignity, we betrayed the sacrifices of our compatriots who lived and died for this struggle. My message remains that it has always been persistent in asking who would wear down all forms of this resistance. Today, I stand here as a leader of a state that has benefited from some of the alterations made to the 1999 Constitution as it relates to the conduct of elections, the power of the electoral umpire, and changes related thereto. If the 2023 governorship election was conducted with the template used in 2003, I am not sure the outcome would have been favorable. The grace of God brought us here through the instruments of wide-ranging reforms in systems and the continued enthusiasm of the public. It is easy to point out the flaws in our system, but being fixated with the shortcomings could also mean ignoring or downplaying the great things that had also happened over the last 26 years. I am not just here as a leader who has benefited from the changes that the Constitution review process has made possible. I have also come as a governor of a state that stands to gain strong economic mileage from these changes. In April this year, I signed the Abia State electric bill into law. The new law provides legal leverages for the state government and private business to operate in the electricity value chain in Abia. Following the constitutional changes made in the 9th National Assembly and signed into law by the late President Muhammadu Buhari in March 2023, and the electric bill signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR in February 2024, we have since set up the Abia State Electricity Regulatory Agency, ASERA, and just last month, the Nigerian Electricity Regulation Commission, NEC, transferred the responsibility of regulatory oversight for the Abia State electricity market to ASERA. With these shifts in the structure of the local electricity market in Abia, we have clearly taken our energy destiny in our own hands. The institutional mechanism we have put in place to drive this would guarantee a safe operating environment for investors in the conventional and renewable energy markets, create jobs for our people, and spur the business ecosystem in the state to unprecedented growth. Before the 2023 alterations to the Constitution, this optimism did not exist. Let me restate my position. The 2025 constitutional review process presents a great opportunity to further interrogate the system and evaluate what we need to change in steering our country in the right direction. Whatever be our political leaning, Nigeria is ours to build, and we cannot transfer that responsibility to someone else. Nigeria may not be the nation of our dreams yet, but as we learned from history, nothing is irreversible. At any rate, we also have to appreciate the changes cannot happen in an environment ruled by cynicism, docility, and mistrust. We have to believe again that we are a community of great people, a land with great national heritage. For the remainder of the presentation, I will share my thoughts on some of the key agenda for debates and consideration in the 2025 constitutional review process. As many in this auditorium may know, the positions I would be sharing today have since been documented in my writings and public engagements from the last decade, so that we are not entirely new to these ideas. I have to, however, add that my personal views should not override the legitimate concerns of other stakeholders who also have the right to disagree or present alternative viewpoints. The most important thing is that all of us deserve to have a say in the process. Thankfully, the platform for the broad engagement has been presented to us through these public hearings. My first interest is the clamor for the creation of additional states. I am aware that proposals for the creation of 31 new states were received by the National Assembly prior to this time. While I respect the rights of those who believe that the creation of new states will address concerns of marginalization and exclusion of some ethnic and religious groups in the current structure in some parts of the country, I am more concerned about the additional burden these proposals, if adopted, would add to the lean resources of the nation through the multiplication of administrative costs and further bloating of an oversized bureaucracy. Except we can magically find independent sources of financing the new states outside what currently exists, I do not share the optimism of those promoting the idea of adding new states to the current 36 states structure. My recommendation would be the development of an inclusive governance model in the states, one that gives every major clan a say in the allocation of resources, a seat at the decision-making table, and the structural leverage to advance their political and economic interests. I believe that we should be more concerned about improving the economic structure of the states, double efforts in creating jobs for the young people outside the civil service, and make the welfare of the common man a priority. The state system is too elite-driven to be functional. The time has come to put the ordinary people at the center of decision-making. On the creation of state police and related matters, I urge that the present realities in the land have made this a matter of urgent national priority. The current exclusive federal policing system is largely inadequate and has exposed our people to a litany of vulnerabilities over the years. So I would vote for the creation of state police, but with the proviso that standards be clearly defined as it relates to leadership, relationship with federal and other subnational policing structures, recruitment, accountability, and respect for human rights. On the proposal to create additional seats for women in the National and State Assembly, my endorsement is total. Seems the women are now awake. Thank you. While this would guarantee the inclusion of women in our political process and give them a say in shaping the character of the Nigerian governance architecture, I, however, do not agree to just having women in our legislative assemblies, which would achieve the desired impact unless a number of fundamental issues are holistically addressed. Number one, the internal process within the political parties have to be strengthened to make for the active participation of women in decision making. The ordinary women, not persons related or affiliated to powerful male party leaders, must be at the center of the process. If we are not careful, we may be creating new opening for men with vested interests to further entrench themselves in the system using proxies. If that happens, nothing in the real sense of it will change in the political fortunes of the average Nigerian women. On the proposal to alter the provisions of the 1999 Constitution to establish the local government councils as a separate tier of government, I would call for the caution and a holistic appreciation of the broad implications of this proposal. Like I argued with the creation of additional states, we must be mindful of further bloating an already overfed bureaucracy. I may not be very correct, but if I understand this proposal correctly, we may be looking at creating hundreds of new bureaucratic structures for the autonomous administration of the local councils. The local government system, as we know, is statutorily responsible for the provision of primary health care, basic adult and vocational education, and similar functions that impact directly on the lives of the population at the grassroots. Like I asked at the 18th Community of Practice meeting of the Honorable Commissioners of Budget and Economic Planning in Umuahia last May, would it be financially prudent to have 774 or more universal basic education commissions and similar number of agencies managing primary health and human services for the local government in the country? What are the implications for cost of governance, corruption, and systemic abuses? There may be need to think this through and make a choice between having new layers of administrative structures that further drain public resources through inflated overheads and creating a system that cuts down on bureaucratic bottlenecks, guaranteeing that the larger chunk of public resources is channeled into provision of social services. On the proposal seeking to make free and compulsory basic education a fundamental right of all citizens, let me state immediately that this should not be debatable. It should be adopted without much ado. This proposal aligns perfectly with the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the 1989 International Convention of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the 1989 Convention on the Rights of the Child, the 1981 African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and the 1990 African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, amongst other international conventions and agreements. Beyond just making the right to basic education a fundamental right for our people and enshrining same in the Constitution, I think we need to pay more attention to education financing. Quality education does not come cheap, and it is not just enough to ask everyone to go to school. Deliberate efforts must be made to fund education across the entire value chain. We need to invest in teacher education with particular emphasis on training and retraining, especially in the relevant fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Our teachers must be trained and motivated to acquire relevant skills to be able to teach the pupils and students effectively and prepare them for the competition of the new global environment. These teachers have been well remunerated, their welfare prioritized, and the environment where they work made conducive for very important work that they do. So, in addition to making education compulsory and a fundamental right of citizens, we also have to make effective provisions for the statutory funding of the educational system, especially basic education. Let me now conclude by making one general submission. Our target should not be to create a perfect constitution. While perfection would be the ideal thing to aspire to, the truth remains that we will do better by focusing on realities and social dynamics. What I think we should rather seek at this point is to build on the gains that have been made over the past 26 years since the present Constitution came into effect. As I mentioned, every successful review process since 2010 adds something new to our body politic. My hope is that the ongoing review would open up new layers of possibilities in our push to build on the noble dreams of our fathers and the compatriots who gave their all for a nation that lives up to the highest standards of its founding ideals. We may not get there today or even tomorrow, but by confronting our challenges with courage and belief in our patriotic genius, we shall get it right eventually. If we do not grow weary, we shall get it eventually if we do not go weary. Thank you for listening, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Dr. Alex Otti, OFR. Thank you.
Abia, Imo and Abia for one day. Daddy, every one night change. Ndimo, every one day change. Owerri, Meja, Mandi, Karaka. Aja. Owerri, Kelemgi. Benjamin, Kelemgi. Felici Mandukene Kenegi, or Abia even no.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we just finished listening to the voice of His Excellency, the Governor of Abia State, as ably represented by the Deputy Governor.